Good afternoon, welcome to the webinar. We're going to be having a look today at a quick strategy for dealing with spiralling costs. Just to let you know that you're in attendee listen only mode, so if you have any questions, there's some chat boxes that you can add to. And hello and welcome everybody. We're just waiting for some people to join as we speak. So it's nice that you're able to attend. Right, okay, we will start by having a look and going through, there we go. Okay, so we're going to have a look at a lot of businesses, especially small and medium-sized businesses. They're having problems with things like, we've got the living wage coming in from the 1st of April. Business rates are high for some small and medium-sized enterprises. So that, they've got to have a strategy for actually how they can deal with spiraling costs. So this is what we're going to have a look at today. So there's me. Well, my background is as an accountant and an internationally qualified business analyst. I've worked as an internal consultant with small teams and large teams, big transformational projects. And I've worked with a lot of external consultants that have come in. And what I've found is that there's very little knowledge transfer between consultants and the business that they're working for. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. It could be that the consultant has an awful lot of work to do and therefore hasn't got the time really to pass on that knowledge. And for other consultants, it's a bit, they want to extend their contract. They want to keep their work going as long as they can. So, they don't necessarily want to impart too much information. So for me, I set up Why Follow the Herd because I wanted to empower individuals to be able to affect their own improvements within their organisation. Because I just think that's so important that if they can learn the tools and techniques that they can, keep doing that all the time within their organisation. They don't have to rely on expensive consultants. It's something that would become more of a rolling programme for them. So we're going to have a look at how costs are built up for organisations and why it's important to look at how they're operating, because processes drive what you do. I mean, it's everything. It's all right from your inputs, from what triggers a process, like receiving an order from a customer, right through either producing the goods or delivering the service to, whatever the customer receives, that's the output. And everything you do in your organisation costs time and money, and everything you do should add value to what the customer wants, because you're there to provide, meeting those customer expectations is really important. And if you meet or exceed those customer expectations, they help you to build your reputation. And when you build your reputation, you can then look at building maybe your product base or what services you're able to offer to your customers. And therefore, you're looking at redesigning your process and what you do to be able to meet those customer needs. So that's why it's so important. Now, I'm going to do a really quick poll now. Just want to see whether or not your organisation that you currently work for at the moment, does it actually look at its processes on a yearly basis? So if you could vote, that would be great, because it's really, a lot of organisations actually forget that your processes are so important, and they forget that things change over time, and looking at little things might seem really insignificant when there's big problems to be dealing with. So it's really kind of quite key that that you look and understand what you do on a yearly basis. Okay, thank you for that. So that's really interesting, that we don't look at businesses in that much detail regularly. So okay, so the whole thing is, if we keep on doing what we keep on doing, we're going to keep getting what we keep getting at the moment. And Einstein put it brilliantly. He said, insanity is keep doing what we keep doing and expecting a different result. And that's what a lot of businesses do. They keep doing what they keep doing, but they're expecting something to change or to meet customer expectations in a different way. And actually, unless we change what we do, we're not going to be able to do something different or produce something different. So we need to be looking at what we're doing now if we want to affect or change something as an output or something that a customer's getting. So it might bring you to ask, why do organisations change over time? Well, it could be a variety of reasons. Now, we can have organic change, so things like technology might change. Now, I need to show you this. This is quite interesting. Now, my husband found in the loft recently an old paper, okay, and this is going back to 1997, so nearly 20 years, okay. And when we look through it, not one single reference was anything to do with the internet, to web addresses, anything. And a lot of businesses have been around for the last 19 years. So it just shows how much you've got to have changed in that time just to keep up with what people expect. They expect to have a good website. They expect to be able to access your products or services 24/7, that they can order things, that you'll sort out logistics and that you'll send the product through, or the service will turn up or whatever. So, just in that short piece of time in history, things have just changed such a lot. Okay, so we've talked about customer expectations a bit. We've got that all stems really from the Amazon effect. People expect a really good website to be able to pay really easily, that your card details are held on there, that the products are really easy to see. There's good reviews. They can get a view, especially if there's things like books, you can have a look inside to see what the product is before you buy. And that's changed the way all businesses are working. And that's really fundamentally key, that businesses keep up with that. And we have plan change as well. So that could be legislation changes or regulation changes. It could be a result as a merger or an acquisition. So if you're merging with another organisation, you'll have two companies coming together with different sets of rules and processes that somehow you need to integrate or work together. And similarly with an acquisition as well, could work in the same way. So it all leads to some sort of change or other. So why might you want to change how your business operates? Well, we talked about the living wage. And the interesting thing about the living wage, although it comes into law on the 1st of April, and really great for the people that it affects, that's fantastic. But it can have a real ripple effect through an organisation. So if the increase for the living wage pushes those staff up to the same level where other people are working, but they have more complex job descriptions, you might have to raise the next level up in pay to make the allowance for the extra work that they're doing, and that might have a knock-on for the next level up of staff and the next level up. So you could either have a partial ripple effect or right the way through your organisation. And business rates are expensive can be expensive for some small businesses. And I know there's been a lot of talk around that, especially with organisations like the FSB. Now, we've talked about changing customer expectations, but we also need to look at what value we're adding to our customers. If we're operating really good and really efficiently, we're able to keep our costs down, we're providing a really good financial benefit to our customers by our really good pricing point, and that's fabulous for our customers. But we've also got things non-financial, the quality of our product compared to our competitors, how quickly we can get something to them. But the key to everything is really understanding your avatar. Now, your avatar is your ideal customer. So you want to know about their fears, their hopes, their aspirations, their dreams, and how your product or service meets their requirements. It's all about emotion. It's all about fulfilling what they want rather than what they need, and selling that emotional journey to them. And a lot of businesses, might not really kind of understand what their avatar needs and wants, and actually seeing the journey through your business from their eyes. How does it work? Whether they're talking to you direct or whether or not they're going through your website, how good is it for them to be able to do business with you, and what benefits do they see? So that's really important. So we're going to go through a fictional company now. So I've made up this company called Meals to Dine For. So for the next part of the webinar, this is your organisation. And I want you to think of it as your organisation. So if there's already a Meals to Dine For out there, I'm sorry, but I've just completely made this up. So you set this company up 10 years ago and you've invested 60,000 of your hard-earned pounds into setting it up. So that's for setting up the kitchen, for employing some staff, for leasing some premises, some publicity, that type of thing. So you now employ 10 staff, and your mission and the whole purpose that you wanted to set it up is that you wanted to be able to deliver some really good quality, freshly cooked meals to homes within your local area. So your avatar, your ideal customer, are families where both parents work and they've got 2 children who have a very busy social life, after school clubs, and the parents don't really have the time to be able to cook. So they buy in some really good quality food from you. So that can be starters, mains, puddings. 363 days a year you operate, so that's fantastic. You're only shut Christmas Day and Boxing Day. But you're finding your costs are increasing, your living wage and your business rates are going up. But you think, your research has shown that your income's likely to stay static. So you're a bit worried. You feel like your money's going down the drain. So as there's a bit more breakdown, you've got employ 1 kitchen manager, 2 cooks, 3 office staff and 4 drivers. So in 2015, you turned over 300,000 and you had £280,000 worth in costs. This year, though, your business rates will increase by £3,000 and the living wage will increase your costs by £20,000. So you're forecasting to make a £3,000 loss, which is a really bad position to be in. This is the first time since you started up your company that you've been facing a loss. Now, the research you've done is showing that you're expecting customers to remain about the same level. You're going to lose some during the year, you're going to gain some during the year, but your office staff who are also doing the sales don't have any time to be able to pitch to any more clients, to go out to any more groups or get leaflets to schools or go out and do any talks or anything like that, because they're just saying, we've got so much to do, we're having to deal with all the clients that we've got, we just don't have the capacity. So, what do you do? Well, you've got 2 options. You can either increase the number of customers, which is your longer term solution, which you're going to struggle with in the short term because of staff time, or you can look at your costs and reduce unnecessary costs. So we're going to do the latter. We're going to have a look at trying to reduce some unnecessary costs. So we're going to do a really high level look at the organisation. Okay, so the square is Meals to Dine For, and we've got the inputs coming in, which is your staff labour and everything to undertake running your business. And your outputs is all to your customers. Now, your input is you're receiving your order. So that's what triggers you doing something in your organisation. And once you've received an order, what you do is what the whole purpose of your organisation is to make the meals. And then your output is you're delivering the meals. And the customer service that you supply is dealing with customer queries, making amendments, taking new orders, doing cancellations, supporting your customer to be able to do business with you. But the problem with looking at it so high level is you can't tell whether there's any areas where you need to make any amendments or where you can make some savings, because it doesn't give you enough information. So we're going to take the receive order and we're going to break that one down a little bit. And what you need to be able to understand what gets done in that area is you need to be able to gather the explicit knowledge from your staff and the tacit knowledge. Now, your explicit knowledge is everything that's down like in your job descriptions and your how-to guides that you've asked them to do. And that's quite easy to gather. But it's the tacit knowledge that's more difficult to gather, because that's the unknown knowns. It's all the things that they take for granted that they just do, and maybe through their own experience of having worked with you for the last 10 years in dealing with some of the customers and knowing some shortcuts to be able to get information around the business that they do, but it's not logged or jotted down or in any guides anywhere. So that's what you really need to be finding out. So how do you find it out? Well, we can look at interviewing staff. You could interview them on a one-to-one. Now we're looking at primarily on this bit on the office staff, or you could interview the three of them together. And what's good about interviews is, you can alter your questions as you're talking to them to gather some more information from them. But it's not so good at gathering the tacit knowledge. They're more likely to be able to tell you what's written down in the guides and what they're supposed to be doing rather than what they actually do. But if you observe them and you actually sit down and watch them interacting with customers or dealing with them over the internet or over the phone, then you're more likely to pick up trails of things that they do without thinking about what they're doing, which is a really good thing. But it's a little bit more time consuming than doing an interview. And it's only ever really works if you've got everybody in an easy location. If you've got very dispersed offices around, it's very difficult and very costly to get around doing in different offices. So if you've got that problem, we could be having a look at doing questionnaires, and you can be really keen on understanding what you want to get out from your customers. You need to be really sure what questions you want to put across and what sort of answers you want back. Now, with the problem with questionnaires, now they work really well if you've got a dispersed locations, and also for getting out to your customers as well to find out what they need, what they think of the service or product. And that's really, really useful and great information. But questionnaires, especially with staff, and external customers and people as well, they're more likely to respond if they've got an issue or a problem with your product or service. And you find that you might not have quite a balanced view. So if somebody's really happy with a product or service that they've got, they're less likely to participate in one of your questionnaires. But if they've not had such good service, or a bit annoyed about something, or a bit unhappy about something, then they're more likely to respond. So you just need to bear that in mind. And obviously you can't alter your questions depending on what their answers are. So you're a bit more limited in the types of information you gather. You have to be really sure what you want to get out of it at the start. Now, you could do a special purpose record. Now, for Meals to Dine For, your system doesn't currently record meal cancellations. So you could ask your staff to be able to record how many times for a set period of time. So you could do that for a day, a week, a month, several months, just to get a good flavour of what's happening. And you could just use a very basic template. You can use something on Excel or on Word, or even just a piece of paper. And it's a bit of a 5-bar gate approach, that every time a cancellation that would happen, you'd make a mark on the template. And at the end of the day, you'd add them up. And that's really good. And it's a really crude and rough guide to what's happening. And you have to be aware that it's a bit of a rough guide, because say you've got one of your office staff takes a call with a cancellation. As soon as the call's finished, off she goes, quick to the loo, on the way back, kettle on, making a cup of tea, sitting down at her desk again, and there's another call. So she takes the call and she's forgotten to record the cancellations. So a few hours later, she suddenly thinks, I'm sure there was a few more than that. So she makes a few adjustments, and they might not be accurate, and you just need to be aware that, it's not the most accurate tool for using, but it is a good representation. And documentation as well is good to look at. So you can have a look at physical documentation. You can have a look at electronic documentation, just to see what type of information is being captured. So what you were asking for 10 years ago, is that still applicable today? Or has technology moved on and means that you don't need to collect things all the time now? So it's being aware, especially when you're thinking of your customer journey. What does that mean? What do people want? How do you record it? Is there a better way of doing things? And it all brings up a picture. So you can end up with a flow diagram, or you can end up with just a list of processes. And that's great. And that's a brilliant starting point. But there is a problem with collecting data in just these two ways. Now, a flow diagram or a list of processes doesn't show who does what. So you can't get to see very easily that there's duplication, or whether there's problems with handing off work from one person to another. So say there's problems handing information from one office staff to another, they leave them a note, it goes in their in tray, person's on holiday, or they're off sick for a few days, they come back, the note's still there, nothing's been actioned on it. So we need to be able to highlight those sorts of things. So how do we do that? Well, it's easier to do what's called a swim lane diagram. It just gives a little bit more information than just a plain flow diagram. So this one shows we've got a horizontal bar for a customer, a horizontal bar for office staff, and another one for kitchen. So this is just to show us receiving an order. So the customer will place the order and the office staff will receive it. They'll take the customer details. They'll take the customer's order details. Now we get to the diamond, and that's the decision point. So if it's a new order, it then goes up and the office staff will request payment. The customer will make payment and the office staff will complete a new order form for the kitchen. Now, if it's an amendment to an order, the office staff will complete an amendment form for the kitchen, and both of those forms will go off to the kitchen, and that's the end of that particular process. Now, that in itself doesn't look as though there's any particular problems, but when you marry that up with having talked to the staff, having watched the staff, and having looked at the documentation and the records, the special purpose records of the cancellations, then we find that there are a couple of problems. We have unpaid for cancellations where meals have been cooked, but the cancellations have been too late. And we've got some duplication of effort that's going on with recording customer details. So we'll have a look at the first problem. You, in your studies, have uncovered that the kitchen isn't being notified quickly enough that an order has been cancelled. So it could be for a couple of things. It could be that the office staff are keeping details of the amendment forms or the cancellation forms and waiting till they've got a few and then going down to the kitchen. And it means that it's too late, the meal's already been cooked and prepared. Or it could be because you haven't got a policy in place to say customers have to cancel by a certain time, otherwise they get billed. And maybe it's just as simple as that. So we found with your business that we've got high levels of food wastage and that staff are taking home free meals. Woohoo for the staff, brilliant, free meals. Not so good for your pocket though. So that's something we've got to sort out because that's not good for you. So your special purpose records have shown that there are on average 6 meals cooked per week, which was subsequently cancelled. So the cost of those meals are, we've got £1 for food, packaging, and the cost of doing that. So they total £4.80. And you think, £4.80? You know, I've got a £23,000 shortfall that I've got to meet this year. I'm going to have a £3,000 loss this year. So, you know, £4.80, that's a drop in the ocean. That doesn't really make a lot of difference to me. So, you know, why should I worry about that? I should be looking at bigger things. Okay. So if we look about it, £4.80 per meal times 6 meals per week is £28.80 per week in wasted food and preparation time. So over that year, now bearing in mind you're operating 363 days a year, so £28.80 over that period of time brings you up to £1,497.60 per year, which is actually a reasonable amount of money. That's half of your predicted loss, or but. And that's quite a bit. So that's worth taking notice of because your staff are actually benefiting from that. They're having some nice free meals out of that. Now, your second problem was your duplication of effort. So your analysis, you're talking to your staff and recording how they were working found out that there was an element of duplication. So the task they were doing was collecting information off your customers. So your customers were repeating information again and again and again, which isn't great for a customer. They don't particularly want that. They expect you to be able to know what you've got and not to ask for more than you need. So when you observed it, you found that the task they were doing took 4 minutes to complete. And the staff doing this work are paid £12 an hour, including their own costs. So that includes the national insurance and a bit of pension. So it works out that the direct cost for doing that activity is 80p. And you say, 80p? That's even less than the £4.80 for the meals. You know, What's ATP? That's not really going to make much difference. That's even worse. So the interesting thing is that all 3 of your members of office staff are collecting that same information, that 363 days a year. So your bar gate, your special purpose record, your records that you've been collecting and what you've been observing has shown that the information they're asking for 60 times a day, which is quite a lot. 20 of those are correct and they're absolutely needed, so they need to stay in place. But 40 of those data collections are duplicates and they shouldn't be for asking for them. They've either got that information already on the system or it's being held in a paper copy somewhere. Either way, they shouldn't be asking that again. So they're slowing up how quickly they're taking an order. They're asking your customers for things that they've already told you about before, so you're wasting their time as well. And you're costing out those duplicates, are costing you £32 a day to be able to do. And over a year, that's £11,616, which is quite a considerable amount of money and a huge waste to you, because that's a big chunk of money that's not adding value to your customers in any way. And everything you do should be there for the whole benefit of adding value to the customers. And if it's not, then we need to find a better way and a smarter way, or eliminate that completely. So how do we plug the gap on that? So we've got a bit of a recap. Your turnover for last year was 300,000. Your costs were 280. In 2016, your business rates increased by £3,000, or will do this year, and your living wage will increase your cost by 20,000. So you're forecasted to make a £3,000 loss this year, and you're expecting customers to remain at the same level. So just eliminating your unpaid meals will save you £1,497.60 for the year. Now, stopping doing the duplicate work will save you another £11,616 in staff time. But you'll say, but that's not a cashable saving. That's all very well and good saying £11,000 odd, but I've still got to pay my staff. They're still there. They're still doing the day job, irrespective of whether they're there or not. I've still got to pay them their money. So how do I make any savings on that? Well, you could look at actually what they're doing, and with the spare capacity that's now generated, they could be doing some more sales for you. They could be looking at going to groups, advertising. They could be going out and doing some work with schools or with the local community, or wherever they think best placed to be able to show what you got and get some people to sign up to your business. So it's all those places where parents and maybe children go, even workplaces, they might want to drop leaflets up or get some affiliates, membership type things with some big employers in your local area, so that, it can start generating some business. And now they're not doing all these duplicates. They've freed up some time to be able to look at increasing your customer base. So that's a really, really positive way of being able to look at it. So now you've heard all of that, I've got another poll, and I'd be really interested to know whether or not you think it's important to look at your processes on a yearly basis, because things creep in really slowly over time. You don't always realize that things are becoming more inefficient, that things might be wasting your money. There might be a quicker way of doing things. And actually it's realizing what new technology there is, what best practice is going around, what your competitors are doing. If they're getting some new skills and being able to provide a really good quality service to their customers, is that something that maybe you can learn from them? Or be a herd leader yourself and actually find and be creative and find some good processes that you can do that maybe they'll want to copy you from. Okay, so thank you for that. So that's really great that actually you're feeling now that it is important to be able to have a look at what you're doing. So if you know where you are now, it gives you that platform of being able to know where you want to go. So I've got an offer of one of my free quick guides. It's available for a short period of time. Now, what this is about, it's a 3-part guide, and it's part 1 is looking at where you are now. Then you've got part 2 of deciding what structure you want for the future. And part 3 is looking how you get from where you are now to where you want to be. And it's really important because if you know where you want to go, you've got to know where you are now. And it's a bit like asking people to go on a journey or getting a breakdown for him to come out and see you. And they'll say, well, where are you? And it's a bit like, well, it doesn't matter where I am. Well, yes, it is, because we don't know where we've got to go if we don't know where you are at the moment. And that's a problem with a lot of businesses. They don't really fully understand where they are at the moment. And if you don't, you can't be able to decide what journey you need to take to where you need to be. So it's very easy to decide where you want to be, but you've got to be able to detail that path and those goals from where you are to make yourself better. So if you're wanting that guide and you sign up for it and it's of interest to you, brilliant. And if you want the second 2 parts, drop me a message and I'll send you those for free as well. That's not a problem. A little bit more about what I'm doing. I've got it's not available yet, but I'm launching later in the year an online coaching program. Now, I do some consultancy, face-to-face work, but actually doing online coaching programs is a really efficient way for businesses to be able to learn how to affect their own improvements themselves. They're going to have videos, there's PDFs, and there'll be group coaching calls that they'll be able to be involved in, so they can put their own questions that we can talk through and work through how some of these tools and techniques can work for them. And all of this will be done in a very non-technical, very easy, straightforward, how you apply this straight away basis. So we'll be looking at working with stakeholders, making your strategy work for you, dealing with change, getting to really understand what you currently do. Now, we've just whizzed through that today, and there's a lot more detail in this to understanding how you can get right from the top level of your organisation right down to the very tasks and the very documents, if you need to, all the way down. Designing your future structure is great. It's a really nice way to know what you're doing, how you're enabling to do what you want to do, how your staff perceive what you are doing, and whether you're all working in alignment to that. That's really kind of key. We'll be looking at the market you're in and how you analyse your competitors and how you're working with that, and what your strengths and your weaknesses are. Project work. That's really key, and that's all around things like, so many projects fail, and we have a lot of time and money investment into projects, and actually it's really key that we get these to work. So we're looking at why projects fail and how you can be more key into getting these to work for you. Getting yourself contract ready. So it doesn't matter whether or not you're working to a contract at the moment, or you're coming up to wanting to re-tender or just tender for a contract. We've got some great ideas and plans and processes in there for getting yourself contract ready. How to do a business plan. I mean, that just comes down to having your goals, which a lot of businesses don't do very much. And that's really important to do, because you've got to know where you're going. Again, and there's different ways to be able to do your goal setting and your planning and analysing where you are. Understanding what you require in the future. So if you're wanting a new IT system, how do you document, how do you work out what you really require rather than what you think you need? That's really important. And there's going to be lots of bonus material. So these are paid for. There's lots of bonus material that will come as free with these. Looking at how to gather data within your organisation. Now, we've touched a few bits like interviewing and observation, special purpose records, but there's lots of other tools and techniques that you can use. Now, a really big thing is about life coaching, because if you get all the processes and procedures and structure in place for an organisation, that's fantastic. But if you don't have the business thinking with all your staff, and you don't manage the change, and you don't help them to engage, and you don't help them to deal with their limiting beliefs and their own biases, then whatever structure and plans you've put in place are more likely to fail or not work as well. So actually being able to life coach and be able to support that staff and draw out from them what they think would be good in terms of your organisation, that whole engagement, effective leadership. So that's really, really key to making an organisation work well. Going to be doing a bit about writing the business plan, how to see things objectively. Now that can be really difficult for us sometimes. You get caught up, you can't see the wood for the trees, and actually being able to stand back and look at something objectively, even whether that's through something like a customer journey, is really important to be able to see where your business isn't working so well. And then you can identify from that some improvements you can make. So we'll take you through some tips and techniques to be able to look objectively. And then we've got some case studies on how things are working well, how things aren't working so well, and what they did to make that better. Now, adding to that, I'm running a series of free webinars. Now, I've got this one today, which is just me, but I've got a series of ones where I'm talking to some other experts about a whole variety of things. Now, the next one is coming up on the 5th of February, and that's around project and programme and transformational change. And that's with a guy called Rob Pendleton. And I've worked with him on a big transformation project before, but he's really, really great. And he's got some fantastic experience about really big transformational change. And he's worked with some, phenomenally big organisations, your Cadbury's, Tesco, Marks and Spencer's, all some big companies. And he's worked and he identified why a lot of projects fail. So he will be doing a webinar looking at identifying why projects fail and what you can do to help to make them more successful. We've got an effective leadership webinar coming up with an international leadership coach, and we're going to be doing that in March. We've got some other ones planned, I haven't got the dates yet, but on managing human resources, business architecture for small businesses. Now that's an interesting one because automatically people think of business architecture, which is designing the structures of your business, as being for major big organizations. But it's not, and it's really key for small organizations as well. So that'll be a really interesting one to listen to. And then we've got somebody else doing a social media expert on how important it is, that social media presence you have for your organization these days. So if you don't already sign up to my Heard It's Monday newsletter, please do, because you'll get all the details of these free webinars coming up on that. So there we go. There's my last bit, my newsletter. Please sign up because, as I say, you'll get some really bits of inspiration, some nice bits of info on a Monday morning, and any details of any free webinars or anything coming up. You can like my Facebook page is Why Follow the Herd, or Twitter is Why Follow Herd. Couldn't put the in it because there was too many letters. So Why Follow Herd on Twitter. But that's brilliant, and it's been really nice you being part of the webinar. I hope you've managed to get something out of it. If you've got any questions that you'd like to put, I'll be here watching the chat for a few minutes more. If not, it's been really great you being part of that, and I hope to catch you on one of my webinars very soon. Take care.